Hello, this is Tony Hiller from RealClimateScience.com. Climate experts say that in order to feed the world, we're going to have to cut back on the amount of food we're producing. Countries in Europe, like Ireland, are massively cutting back their food production in order to reach their climate targets. It may seem counterintuitive to cut back on the food supply in order to feed more people, but White House climate advisor John Kerry explains it.
Agriculture contributes about 33% of all the emissions of the world. And you just can't continue to both warm the planet while also expecting to feed it. Doesn't work. So we have to reduce emissions from the food system to keep the 1.5 degrees alive. Why do we have to keep 1.5 degrees alive? Because scientists, as a basis of physics and mathematics, not ideology and politics or party labels or anything else, as a matter of physics and mathematics and some biology and chemistry have told us these are the consequences. And we already see it happening. And almost everything they've predicted for 30 plus years now is coming true, but the problem is it's coming true faster and bigger than was in fact predicted.
John Kerry says that his climate disaster is happening much faster than predicted. This is the same John Kerry who in 2009 predicted the Arctic would be ice-free by the year 2014.
You have sea ice, which is melting at a rate that the Arctic Ocean now increasingly is exposed. In 5 years, scientists predict we will have the first ice-free Arctic summer. That exposes more ocean to sunlight. Ocean is dark. It consumes more of the heat from the sunlight, which then accelerates the rate of the melting and warming rather than the ice sheet and the snow that used to reflect it back up into the atmosphere.
Kerry made this prediction in 2009, but since the year 2006, there's been essentially no trend in Arctic sea ice. Arctic sea ice extent on May 31st was about the same as it was on the same date in 1995. And according to the Danish Meteorological Institute, the North Pole had its coldest May since at least 1958. Kerry's forecast didn't work out very well, but he says that his climate disaster is happening much faster than predicted. In 1989, the United Nations said we only had until the year 2000 to save the planet from global warming, and that the Maldives were going to be underwater. But according to actual scientists, the Maldives and other island nations have grown up to 8% in size over the past 6 decades. John Kerry says he speaks for science rather than politics, but the exact opposite appears to be the case. Now we're going to look at some actual science. More than 100 years ago, Scientific American ran this article showing how increased carbon dioxide levels over crops causes their productivity to greatly increase. They ran an experiment where they piped industrial carbon dioxide into a farm and saw a huge increase in crop productivity. In 1922, German scientist Dr. Riedel said that a lack of food for a growing population was the world's greatest problem. And he said the way to solve this problem of feeding the world was to fertilize the air with more carbon dioxide. Most people who attended primary school know that green plants can't grow without an abundant supply of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon which largely makes up the plant comes from the carbon dioxide in the air. The greatest expansion of life on Earth occurred 540 million years ago when carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere were 15 times higher than now and temperatures were 15 degrees Celsius higher than they are at present. Our coal beds came from verdant forests which grew hundreds of millions of years ago when carbon dioxide levels were much higher in the atmosphere. NASA satellite imagery shows that Earth has gotten much greener over the past few decades as carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere have fertilized the plants. As carbon dioxide has increased in the atmosphere, we've seen a corresponding increase in crop yields. Malnutrition has dropped sharply around the world over the past few decades as carbon dioxide levels have increased in the atmosphere. Life expectancy has more than doubled over the last 120 years. The share of the population living in extreme poverty has sharply declined over the last 70 years. And death rates from all types of natural disasters, including meteorological and climate events, is down 95% over the last century. Nothing that John Kerry said had any basis in science, history, or reality. Unfortunately, though, formerly scientific journals like Scientific American have adopted the same scam. They say climate change's negative effects on plants will likely outweigh any gains from elevated atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. But we have hundreds of millions of years of Earth history to show us that what Scientific American is saying simply isn't true. Life thrives at higher levels of carbon dioxide and higher temperatures. The idea of reducing the food supply in order to increase the food supply is utter madness. And it's not just meat they're talking about. Scientific American says that lettuce is even worse than bacon. Nothing these people are saying makes any sense, which takes me back to Henry Kissinger's quote, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world." Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this massive scam for the past 15 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki Upla, and the 4 new puppies on the web at realclimatescience.com.